Okay, so here's an update on French molt. I originally had about 20 chicks that came down with the French molt, and 12 of them are out in the big flight cages, having grown back all of their feathers and are flying around like nothing ever happened. On the other hand, I have 8 of them in here, these 4 here, and these 4 over here, that were what I call failure to thrive babies. As you can see, they still don't have all their long feathers on. A lot of them have grown some and then lost them again, or just haven't grown them all back in again yet. I caught them all and discovered that they were all frightfully thin to the point where they were not growing. Now, one of the, which would explain why they haven't grown their feathers back, because growing feathers takes nutritional energy that they clearly were not getting. So, anyway, one of the symptoms that I read about of the French molt, which is a hemorrhagic illness, meaning it's an internal bleeding illness, the reason their feathers fall out is because the inside the quill dies and bleeds, and the feathers die and drop out. They'll also get marbling under their skin that's internal bleeding, and things like that. But they do get over it. In 6 months, a healthy bird will clear it completely from their body and have no sign of the virus left except for antibodies. So, but these guys were not putting it back together again. So when I caught them, I found they were really, really underweight. Like, I was surprised they were still alive. They clearly hadn't been growing at all, and that explains why they weren't growing their feathers back. So one of the symptoms I read about of French molt is anorexia. Now, I think it's a little misleading to call it anorexia, because to me, anorexia is a human construct. There's several different theories about it. One is that it's a control and manipulation mechanism, that it's an addiction, that it's, just basically a human neurosis. But, in Mother Nature, you're not going to see a lot of animals starving themselves to death in order to get control of the flock. It's a human construct that anorexia kind of is a mechanism of. So I think it's a little misleading to call it anorexia. I suspect that there's something going on that makes them stop eating. So one of the other symptoms, and the thing that kills the very young chicks, is that it does organ damage. Now, I'm like, okay, if you guys had any serious organ damage here, they wouldn't have made it this long, because they're 4 months old now. But perhaps they have some kind of internal infection or something. So I treated them with a course of antibiotics. First I treated them for Candida, which seemed to help, but then they kind of relapsed back again. So I treated them with Baytril. I'm out of Amtil, and I can't seem to buy it anywhere. So I'm using Baytril now, which I'm not confident about. But it did get them to start gaining weight. So I must have done something right. So anyway, they've been in here for a couple of weeks, just eating. This, by the way, is cornmeal. And if you have a bird that needs to put weight on, put some cornmeal in its cage and it will fatten up in no time. So they're in here, they got their treatment, they're doing R&R. I'm waiting for them to gain as much weight as possible, and I will put them out into the big flight cage with everybody else next week, because breeding season is coming. So just to get a look at the other birds that have the the French molt and have gotten over it. Let's take a look at a few of these little boos. Oh, come on. Don't get the door closed. Okay, so let's see. Who else has a French molt here? See this little guy right here? Dropped all his feathers and slept in the corner of the floor with a mouse. He was in really bad shape. He's looking fine now. This is his brother. who never got the French molt. This is Bubba's boy that I cannot tell apart from Bubba except for that black band on his leg. That's a 2019 band. But other than that, he looks so much like his father, I can't tell them apart. Where is his father? I don't see him. He's hiding. So anyway, he never got the French molt. And I do notice that the French molt did take a little piece out of their growth rate. Oh, there's Bubba up there. Hi, Bubba. Who else had it? His brother had it. His sister had it, right there. She's throwing all her feathers back, and it's perfectly normal. And making up some size. Somebody else had it in here, but I can't remember who. I don't know. There were a few others. But, yeah, so the lion's share, as predicted, of the French molt babies did grow their feathers back and become completely normal by the time they're 4 months old. These guys are only 4 months old. They're flying and everything else. So yeah, I think that's correct. I also suspect that this failure to thrive thing I have with the other birds is not French molt related. I think I gave them all candida by slamming them really hard with calcium because I had rickets going on. And that might, combined with the French molt, might have become the issue. And then the other thing is, of course, one of the downsides to having a big illness like this is that it makes you vulnerable to other illnesses. So the antibiotics did seem to clear up whatever their problem was, and I am hopeful that they will continue to normalize. But I will keep you posted. So here's my other cage. I have quite a few babies in here that had the French molt and are completely normal now. Let me see if I can show them to you. This little girl right here still hasn't grown her tail back, but she flies all over the place now. This little girl up here has grown all her feathers back. This is Katesh and Mercury's baby that I fostered out 2 of their eggs, and in return for keeping one of the chicks, they gave me back the other one. So she's a deal that do this commonly make. I only keep 3 eggs in a nest, but I want more babies out of that pair, and somebody else had a nest full of infertile eggs, so I give them 2, and then when the chicks are old enough, I take one back and they keep the other. So she's kind of a weird looking bird. I'm not sure I'll use her, but we'll see. Let's see, who else we got in here? But she, as you can see, her feathers are a little scruffy, but they're there. Who else had it? They never had it. This little guy down here, as you can see, is still not completely feathered up, but he's getting close. The little, I can't see them. They move around too fast. There's another, oh look, you are getting your tail back. There it is. It took her a long time, but she was finally getting her tail back. There's another little green one in here. They lost his feathers and grew them back. So, it's kind of hard to pick them out at this point. I have a lot of birds in here because it's time to do a big cull, So yeah, that's the update on the French molt. As per predicted, many of them have grown their feathers back, and I think once I get these other guys cleared of whatever bacterial something that was making them unhappy, they'll be totally fine too. So, French molt update.